All right, Shabbos, good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is Samich. We are picking up on Nun Tes with base 59b, right by the period. Va'amar Rava. Thank you to Rabbi Huda for giving the shir yesterday. Our shiurim are dedicated. We have a Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Sivan, David and Roberta Schwartz, in honor of the members of the shul, Hilly and Eli Kagan, in honor of the Magideh Shir and Moshe Abramson, who makes it possible to learn the daf remotely. Yeshakach to all of our sponsors. So we'll say with that, let's begin. A lot to do today. I just put on the WhatsApp. It was either going to be pictures of my latest family vacation, or Rambam Hilchos Bechoros. I went with Rambam Hilchos Bechoros, so you'll have a couple of pages which Amir Tashem we're going to do towards the end of this year to kind of bring this sugya together a little bit to see some of the halacha psuka. So at that, let's begin. Va'amar Rava, Hayulu Chamisha Asar Tloim. The person had 15 sheep. Lo Yomar ever Asar Vachnisim Ladir. He shouldn't say, you know what? I'll take 10 of them, put them into the pen. Ve'etel mehem echad, and I'll take one obviously, because we'll say from 15 you're only taking one. Va'ashar peturin, and ultimately again, the rest will be patur. So we'll say, remember again. So in this case over here, I have a flock of 15. The truth is, from a meiser perspective, there's no difference if it's 15 or if it's 10. You're only taking one sheep as meiser be'ema. So I say to myself, you know what do I have to deal with 15 sheep? So let me just take 10 out of the 15, put them in the pen. I'll take one out of there, and that'll be enough. So now the Gemara says, Rava says you're not allowed to do that. Ela konsan ladir umotzi asara benota mehen echad v'ashar mitztarfen legoren acher. Rather, what Rava says, what you do is halacha lemaisa. You go ahead and you put all 15 in the pen. You go ahead and you go through the first 10. The 10th one that comes out is Meiser Behema, and the remaining animals actually are mitzaref to the next goer. Remember again, we pointed this out, that as much as there are 3 different granos, 3 different intervals for Meiser Behema purposes, halacha lemaisa, the entire calendrical year is one Meiser Behema unit. So whatever grouping of animals are not mitzaref to one goren are mitzaref to the next one. So in this one you'll take the remaining 5 and you'll just simply retithe them with the next Meiser Behema cohort. So the Gemara says that supports this. If a person had 15 sheep, top of Samach Hamad Aleph, Lo Yomer ever Asara ve'etel mehen echad. Person shouldn't say, you know what, why do I have to put all 15 into the pen? Let me just take 10 of them, put 10 into the pen, ve'etel mehen echad, and I'll go ahead and I'll just take 1 from the 10, v'ashar p'turin, and the rest will simply be patur. You can't do that. Rather, Ella konsan ladir, you put them all into the pen. Umotzi asara, you allow 10 of them to run through the entranceway. V'nolta mehen echad v'ashar mitztarfen legoren acher. You go ahead and you remove 1, i.e. the 10th animal, and the remaining 5 animals ultimately again are mitztaref to the next goren. They become part of the next Meiser Behema cohort. Vatanya, but we learned Tisha Sartloim Lo Yomar Evrar Asara ve'etel mehen echad v'ashar p'turin. But yet we learned the Brisa. The Brisa says a person has 19 sheep. So remember again, like we said before, 19 is the same thing ultimately as 10, right? It's all. So a person shouldn't say, you know what, I have 19. I'm only going to, regardless, I'm going to take the 10th animal from this, and the rest technically are pater. So a person shouldn't say, you know what, I'll separate out 10, ve'etel mehen echad, and I'll just remove 1 from the 10. V'ashar p'turin, and the remaining 9 will be pater. Ella, rather, what should you do? Konsin Ladir, you have to put all of the sheep into the pen. Umotzi Asara, you go out and you allow 10 to run through the entranceway. V'notel Echa Mehem, and the 10th animal becomes Meiser Behema. V'ashar P'turin. And both say here, what does the Brisa say? The rest are Pater. So we'll say, see here the Kasha, right? What's the Kasha? In the previous Brisa, it was really a statement of Rava. Rava said if you have 15, you have to put all of them in the pen. You allow the first 10 to run through. Number 10 is Meiser Behema. What happens to the next 5? Right? They're excellent. Good. They're part of the next Goren, right? They're part of the next Meiser Behema cohort. In this price, what is it saying? If you have 19, same halacha, you have to put all 19 into the pen. But what does the Bryce over here say about the... So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10 is Meiser Behema. What does this Bryce say about the remaining 9? They're pater. So let's go on over here. Are the remaining animals pater, or do they become part of the next Meiser Behema cohort? Rav Huna Bar Schobos is actually a fascinating case. So Rav Huna Bar Schobos says in front of Rava, so the Gemara says, Berigla, he said this over, Rashi says over here, Berigla, B'Shabbos Shalifnei Haregel, Shebo Darshan Hilchos Haregel. So I'll say, so interestingly enough, they spoke this out on the Shabbos before one of the Regalim, because remember again on the Shabbos before the Regalim, so Darshan Hilchos Chag B'Chag. Remember Shloshim called them a Chag 30 days before Yom Tiv. You would Darshan Halachos. So both say, by the way, what's fascinating about this is, why would they be darshaning these halachos 30 days before the Yom Tiv? Because also remember again, as you saw in the previous Mishnah, so almost everyone agrees that halacha l'maisa, the tithing periods revolve around the regalim. So it could very well be that part of kind of every Yarchei Kala before the regalim included some brief overview of the halachos of Meiser Behema. Quite amazing. So what's the case? So also listen to this. It's actually really fascinating. B'dir sheyesh lo shnei psachim askinan. We'll say, what's the case of the Brisa? When the Brisa says that if I have 19 animals, what do the Brisa say? Step number 1 is, what do I have to do? Step number 1, put them in the Goren. Excellent. All right, Moshe. Wow. This is good. All right, put them all in the pen. Excellent. Put them all in the pen. And then what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Animal number 10 ultimately is Meiser Behema. Now, the problem with this Brisa is, what did the Brisa say? What's the status of the remaining 9? They're pater. So the Gemara says, no. Here's the case. We're talking about a pen that has 2 entrances or 2 exits, right? 2 openings. Now watch this. So what's the case? This is great. The yatsu test b'pesach zeh, the test b'pesach zeh. So I'll say, so what happens? I have 19 animals. Now what ended up happening is 9 of them went out one entranceway. The other 9 went out the other entranceway. So I'll say, so now what's happening? There's 1 sheep left inside of the pen. Now we'll say in this case over here, amazingly enough, that 19th animal ultimately again has the ability to go to either of the entrances, which means that technically speaking, it could be the 10th for either one. Because it could be the 10th for either one, therefore what? It paters, essentially it's mitzarif to both of the groupings. So because technically speaking, it could go out of either one of the exits, it could be mitzarif to either one of the groups, and therefore it's viewed halacha l'maisa as the asiri for both groups. Because it's viewed as the technical asiri for both groups, it paters both groups. Incredible. The chazi lahacha ulahacha. So ultimately again, so because I will say that's why this Brisa says that halacha l'maisa, the quote unquote the remaining 9 are pater from Meiser Behema, because in reality it's not the remaining 9. That's a little bit of a misnomer. What ended up happening is 9 went out entrance A, 9 went out entrance B or exit B, and there's a 10th sheep, right? There's the center, right? The center is sitting inside of the pen, and the center, technically speaking, could be mitzarif to either group. Because he can mitzarif to either group, halacha l'maisa, it's almost viewed as if what? He's mitzarif to both groups. Now obviously he's only going to go out of one side, so he's going to become the Meiser Behema for one of the groups, but because technically he was shaykh to both of the groups, he's considered to be the center for both groups. Therefore, again, we'll call it, let's say 9 go out entrance A, and the center goes out entrance A, he becomes Meiser Behema. But since he could have gone out with the 9 from entrance B, the 9 from entrance B are considered to be tithed as well, and therefore do not need to go through another, or do not need to attach to another goren. I belishni lekagon shemana tisha. So the Gemara says, or the Gemara is just giving another possible solution to the reconciliation of the brises. Belishni lekan, belishni lekagon shemana tisha. Why don't you say the following case? Maybe you counted out 9 animals. V'chimata asara, when you got to the 10th, kare chad meresha. Ultimately, again, what happened? You called it 1. Instead of calling it 10, you called it 1. To which the Gemara says that won't work. I'll tell you why. Kasavar asiri me'elav kadosh. Because we both say this opinion holds, this price holds, and we're gonna build on this in the next sugya. The 10th animal, both say, as much as we made a big deal about calling the 10th, but we're going to see that there is a school of thought, and it's a dominant school of thought, and in fact, the Rambam paskins this way, as we will see inside, that Allah Chalamaysa, the 10th animal is Kadosh Me'elav, which means once that 10th animal comes out, whether you designate it as number 10 or not, is absolutely irrelevant. Begoren umana on zugos. Why don't you go ahead and set it up as a case, maybe as dealing with the following scenario, where the animals came out in pairs, and you went ahead and you counted 1, 2, but you weren't counting animal 1, animal 2, you were counting pair 1, pair 2. Kasavar asiri leminyan behemosu kadosh. Because we both say this opinion will hold that halacha lemaisa. We're going to see this machlokes in the next Gemara. When counting, does the count go by the objective number of animals that have exited the pen, or does it go by the way the owner is counting the flock? So as we're going to see again, this price reflects the view of the opinion who holds that halacha lemaisa, when the animals come out in pairs and you're counting it pairs and you're calling pair number 1, even though again it's really animals 1 and 2, we go by that count. Amram Nachar bar Yitzchak, Zakai imi de Ravuna bar Schora, Tishanele Shmaita beregla Kishmaite. So we'll say so beautifully, Nachar bar Yitzchak, right? Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak said, the mother of Rav Huna is so fortunate, right, that she has a son who was able to go ahead and be metaritz the brisa like his Rabbi, like Rava. What I will just tell you something very interesting, which is the Rambam does codify this halacha. You actually have in the pictures that I sent you on the WhatsApp group. This is in Perek Shmini halacha. This is in the 8th Perek halacha Yud Perek Ches halacha Yud Aleph. So the Mishnah actually, the Rambam actually codifies this case. Hayulo tisha asar tloim b'so chadir. If a person had 19 sheep inside of the pen, the yatzu tisha b'pesach zeh v'tisha b'pesach zeh, and 9 go out of one entranceway, another 9 go out of an entranceway. Notala echal l'shem meiser v'kulam p'turin. So the 10th one is obviously considered to be the meiser behema. But I will say, but the chiddush is that what? The chiddush is the 9 that went out of what we'll call exit B are potter from any further tithing. Sha'osan hatisha nimnu minyan haroi. Because they both say the 9 who went out. So remember again, let's assume the 10th animal goes out of exit A. The 9 who went out of exit B were still part of a proper minyan. In other words, when they left exit B, there was a 10th animal inside the pen, and therefore they are considered to be tithe. Both say that is different than the case that we saw again on Amud Beis. And in the case of Amud Beis, I'll say that's the Rambam in Halacha Tes, where the Rambam says as follows. The Rambam says that Halacha Lamaisa, if you have 15 animals, you're not allowed to take 10 of them, just tithe them and take one and leave the other 5. Rather, what ends up happening is you put 15 into the pen, take out 10, 10th is Meiser Behema, and the 5 more animals, what do you do with them? You ultimately add them on to the next Goren. The logic behind that, because those remaining 5 ultimately, again, were not yet part of a proper Meiser unit. Therefore, the halach is you have to put them all in the pen, but there's a recognition that the remaining 5 ultimately are going to be mitzaref to the next Meiser Behema cohort. Beautiful. Let's go back to Mishnah. Yatsu, we'll say, here we go. Very interesting sugya as well. Yatsu shnaim ka'achos. We'll say, let's say again, you have two animals coming out of the pen at the same time. So they literally exit simultaneously. Samona osam shnayim. So we'll say the halacha is, we count them one at a time. In other words, even though they exit at once, we count them as 1 and 2. We don't count them as a unit. Manan echad tishi'i va'asiri. So the Gemara says, Mikul Kalin. Ultimately, again here, we'll say if you look at Rashi in the Mishnah, so Rashi says, actually before we get to Rashi, so Manan echad tishi'i va'asiri Mikul Kalin. Ultimately, we'll say if you ended up, Manan echad means if you counted them as 1. So two simultaneous animals, two animals simultaneously exit the pen. The Mishnah tells you I'm supposed to count them as 1 and 2. If I counted them as 1, then what ends up happening? If I counted 1 and 2 as 1, then what ends up happening? Teshi'i va'asiri mikul kolin. Obviously, that's going to throw off the rest of my count, and animals 9 and 10 are going to be messed up. We'll see what the ramifications of being messed up are in just a little bit. Karla teshi'i asiri. We'll say if halacha l'maisa, you go ahead and I will say if you take a quick look, you see the bottom Rashi, the Rashi Kisvei Yad. So in the right hand paragraph, about 7 lines up from the bottom, Teshi'i va'asiri mikul kolin, Rashi says, Yatzu shtayim b'shishi o b'shvi'i, umana'an l'shneim ka'achos, nimtza shat teshi'i lechashbono hu asiri lebehemis, va'asiri havi achad asar. So the example, by the way, would be the example that he gives over here is if animals 6 and 7 come out as 1. The truth is, it doesn't matter if it's 6 and 7, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. The idea just is, in this case over here, it's before animals 9 and 10. So some animals earlier in the count come out. So we'll say, so what happens? If let's say animals 6 and 7 come out together simultaneously, and you call them 6, so what ends up happening? The animal that you call 9 is really 10. The animal that you call 10 is really 11. So we'll say in this case, as we're going to see, they are mikul kolin. Mikul kolin means it cannot be offered up. As we're going to see again, both of the animals have some level of residual kedusha, and what you do is you allow them to graze until they develop a mum, and then ultimately again they can be consumed. So the Mishnah goes weiter. Kari l'tishia, so let's listen to this case. Kari l'tishia siri, if you called the 9th animal, so we'll say this is now case number 2. This is normal simultaneity, right? Case number 1 in the Mishnah was you have 2 animals coming out at once. Fine. Case number 2 is 1 at a time. Just what happened? What happened? You mixed up your count. So Karu l'tishi asiri, you called the 9th animal the 10th one. Ula asiri tishi, and the 10th animal the 9th one. Ula achadasar asiri, and the 11th one the 10th one. So we'll say, so again, follow this. You called the 9th animal the 10th the 9th, the 11th the 10th. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Shlashtan nikudashin. All 3 of them are kodesh. All 3 of them are kodesh. Now we'll say, now understand what. So you'll say, by the way, do you see what's the message here? What's the message here? You have to be masudar in life. If you are all over the place, then ultimately, and you lead a life of confusion, stuff gets mixed up, messed up. You have to lead a life of seder. You have to have your head on your shoulders. You have to be masunim badin. You have to look at things critically. You can't be doing a million things at once, because if you're doing a million things at once, you do nothing correctly. So why does this happen? We'll say, why does this happen? How does something like this happen? Somebody checked their Facebook, right? Somebody checked their email, right? We'll say this is what happens. It's the same way that if you're davening and you check your email, stuff happens. You're learning, you check your email, stuff happens. Again, in life, if you want to accomplish things, be masudar. Be masudar. People think that they accomplish more when they multitask. We all know it's not true. When you're multitasking, ultimately, first of all, you don't get anything more done, and that which you do has an eroded sense of quality. So I'll say that's what's happening over here. So whatever the Talmudic equivalent of checking your email, right, or texting someone, whatever the Talmudic equivalent, that's what's happening over here. So he called the 9th the 10th, the 10th the 9th, the 11th the 10th. Shloshtan nikudashin. Now both say they're all 3 kodesh. Now what does this mean? Here we go. So both say the 9th one, remember, you called the 9th one the 10th. So because that the 9th one has some level of kedusha, nechamuma means you have to let it graze, and once it develops a mum, you're permitted to eat it. Ha'asiri meiser, the 10th one is meiser. Now this is interesting. Now remember again, in this case, what did you call the 10th? You call the 10th the 9th. Obviously you already know, because the Gemara before gave this way a little bit. This is reflecting the opinion that ha'asiri kadosh me'elav, the 10th animal is mekudash on its own. Meaning, even if there's no formal designation, the 10th animal is always considered to be kodesh. V'achadasar karish shlan. I was saying, I remember in this case over here, you called the 11th one 10 as well. So I will say, because of that, the 11th is offered up as a karban shlamim. So we'll say, so again, 9th grazes until it develops a mum. 10 is Meiser Behema, because you don't have to be Mekadosh Meiser Behema, it's Mekudosh Me'elav. And 11, because you called it 10, is not going to be Meiser Behema, because there's only one Meiser Behema, but it will be offered up as a Shlamim. So the Gemara says, Va'oset Temura. And furthermore, again, so we will say, so this animal has the ability, specifically animal number 11, has the ability to go ahead and affect Temura. Div Rabbi Meir. Am Rabbi Huda, V'chiyesh Temura, Oset Temura. Rabbi Huda says that makes no sense. 11 itself is a Temura, right? 9 itself is a Temura. Could an animal which became Kodesh through Temura go ahead and affect another Temura? So it seems the answer to that is no. Amru Mishum Rabbi Meir, Ilu Haya Temura Lahaya Karev. So I said, so ultimately again they said to. So Rabbi Huda said, they said in the name of Rabbi Meir, but Rabbi Huda, it's not true, because ultimately if it really wasn't a Temura, if it wasn't a true Temura, ultimately again it wouldn't be offered up. The fact that number 11 ultimately is offered up as a Shlamim indicates that it has true sacrificial status, and as a result it has the ability to affect Temura as well. Kara L'Tishia Siri. Now say, what happens in the following case? You call the 9th animal the 10th, Ula Asiri, the 10th animal the 10th, Ula Achadasar Asiri, and the 11th animal the 10th. So we'll say, so in this case over here you have 3 10th animals. Number 9 is the 10th, number 10 is the 10th, and number 11 is the 10th. What's the halacha? Ein Achad Asar Mekudash. We'll say, in this case over here, this varies. Remember again, in case number 1, you called 9, 10, 10, 9, 11, 10. In this case, you're calling 9, 10, 10, 10, 11, 10. The nafkamina, the Gemara says, will be, in this case, case number 2, number 11 does not become a kodesh as a shlamim. Why not? This is incredible. So the Gemara says, L'chadasar eina chadasar mekudash, zaklal, kol shelo ne'akar shem asiri mimenu, ein achad asar mekudash. Rabbi say, essentially what the Mishnah is saying is like this. Once 10 is designated as 10, any statement you make vis-a-vis 11 is effectively meaningless, which makes sense. In other words, once you call animal number 10, 10, then what? The process shuts down. It shuts down. So that you could call 11 Moshe Rabbeinu. It doesn't make a difference, right? It's not going to affect anything. So I will say, so therefore in case number 1, remember, you called 9, 10, 10, 9, 11, 10. So because you did not go ahead and call number 10, 10, even though 10 is Kodesh, even without your declaration, because you didn't call it 10, it leaves room open for number 11 to still be sanctified as a Shlamim. That is Meiser Behema, but as a Shlamim. In case number 2, because you actively designated 10 as 10, even though what else did you do? You also called 9, 10 and 11, 10, but once you go ahead and you call number 10, 10, that shuts down the process. To the point ultimately again that number 11 no longer has the ability to be sanctified as a carbon. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Well, we're going to get through everything. So Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Mena'an zugos, kintrin. So we'll say, now Rabbi Yochanan alludes to something we said before at the end of the previous sugya. What happens if halacha lemaisa, you counted them off as pairs? So we'll say, so in this case over here, this is a premeditated pair count, right? So again, for whatever the why doesn't matter. Over here, I'm deciding, you know what? I want to count off my animals as pairs. So there's pair number 1, pair number 2, pair number 3, until I get to until I get to number 10. So I get to number 10, which is really pair number 10, or kinterin. I decide to go ahead and count off my animals by hundreds. Baruch Hashem, a big flock. So I decide to count off my animals by hundreds. So what's the halacha? Asiri liminyanahu kadosh. The 10th one, according to your count, is kadosh. So the Gemara says liminyano mai. What does it mean according to my count? What does that mean? Literally according to my count, or according to the objective count of when they get to animal number 10? So we'll say this is a machlokas. Rav Mari Amar leminyan shalahu kadosh. Rav Mari says that I control the count. So if I decide to count off my flock by pairs or by hundreds, the 10th animal, according to, so that might be the 10th pair. Obviously, it can only be one animal in the 10th pair, or the 10th hundred, right? There's only one animal in that 100, becomes Meiser Behema. That's supposed to say that's Rav Mari. Rav Kahana Amar leminyan behema sekadosh. Rav Kahana says no. It goes by the objective count of animals that becomes kadosh. Supposed to say so fundamental machlokes when I proactively decide over here to count in a different setup. I don't want to count one by one. I want to count pairs. I want to count hundreds. So we'll say, so how do we designate Meiser Behema in that case? Rabbi Yochanan says, what we designated is according to my count. Rav Kahana says, no, according to the objective counts of the animals. Tanan, so we'll say, Tanan Yatzu Shnaim Ka'achos. So we'll say, remember again, what was the first case in the Mishnah? Two animals come out simultaneously. So what's the halacha? Mona osan shnayim shnayim. What did the Mishnah say? You have to count them off how? 1 and 2. You cannot count them off as a pair. Mina'an echad. But if you ended up counting them as one pair, or if you ended up counting them as one, you counted 1 and 2 as one, then what's the halacha? Then animals 9 and 10 are messed up, as the Mishnah says. So according to the opinion who says that halacha l'maisa, if I choose to count off a pair, right, then ultimately again the counting for my sebehima goes after my counting. Then I understand mishum hachi havu tishii va'asiri mikukalin. So ultimately again I understand why. Then I understand the statement of the Mishnah ula asiri kakarli tishi ula achada sar asiri. Because we'll say what's going to end up happening over here. Because ultimately in this case over here 9 becomes 10, 10 becomes 11. But according to the opinion who says that we simply go after the objective numbering of the animals, then I will say, in other words, if we go with the opinion that says when it comes to Meiser Behema, we don't really look so much as how I'm numbering it, but how, or counting it, but how the animals actually flow out of the pen, then ultimately there's no kilkul over here. Rabbi Yochanan says, when do I say that halacha l'maisa you have the right to count it off as pairs, and we follow your counting for Meiser Behema purposes? Heicha di'ichavein la'afuke zugo zugos. Heicha dinafik memela lo. So we'll say, we understood this. Rabbi Yochanan says, when do I hold that you could control the count? When can you control the count, Rabbi say? That's when you proactively bring the animals out pairs by pairs. What's the case in the Mishnah? Case in the Mishnah is where they're coming out by, this was an accident. Two animals came out simultaneously. This was not my intention. My intention was to bring them out 1, 2, 3, 4. So the Mishnah says 2 came out of it at a time. So the Mishnah says, make sure you count those off as what? 1 and 2. If you accidentally went ahead and counted them as 1, then you're going to mess up 9 and 10. What you call 9 is really 10. What you call 10 is really 11. So I'll say, so a fundamental distinction over here. Rabbi Yochanan says that halacha l'maisa, if you choose to count off your flock in pairs, you have the right to do that? Absolutely. As long as what? As long as you are doing that bekavana. If you're not doing it bekavana, then you mess up. And we'll say this is indeed how the Rambam paskins. So the Rambam says in halacha hey, his limnos v'yatzu tchila shnayim shein rishon v'sheni harei zemona kol zug umekadish zug asiri v'chein manyan shlosha b'chol pam o chamisha mekadish kat ha'asiris. So the Rambam writes halacha l'maisa that if you want to go ahead and count off your animals as pairs or in threes or in hundreds, you have the right to do that. So again, Rabbi said, we pass on to Rabbi Yochanan, and this is really quite fascinating because on one hand, so I'll tell you why this is interesting. I'm going to tell you why it's interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, as much as we're saying, and there's going to be a dominant theme, that the 10th animal is kadosh on its own, right? Even if you do not intend. So we'll say that's in a vacuum where you're counting off your animals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But I will say, but we do pass like Rabbi Yochanan, that you could control, I don't know what the right word is, not the rhythm of you could control the counting increments, right? You could control, right, the counting increments, the increments of counting. Right? So we'll say, so ultimately again, the incremental units of counting you control. So if you want to count off your flock in pairs, in threes, or in hundreds, ultimately, again, your Meiser Behema will be regulated like that as well. But that's big kavana. That's why the Mishnah says, if your kavana is not to do that, your kavana is to count it off 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 run out at the same time. Make sure you count those off individually, because if you don't, you will mess up the Meiser Behema count. Good. The Gemara goes weiter. So the Gemara says as follows: Tashma. Benan lemafreya. But another interesting case. What happens if you counted down? Fascinating. You counted down. You started with 10, 9, 8. And so what would be animal number 10, you actually called what? 1. So we'll say, so what's that lacha? Benan lemafreya. Asir shemeinu kadosh. So the 10th one, according to your count, which you're actually calling 1, is called mekadosh. So we'll say, so remember again, the Gemara is linking this back to the Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Kahana. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that I control the count, so that makes sense. Who kadosh shapir? Who kadosh asiri chad karile. Also according to Rav Kahana, who says no, that Meiser is controlled by an objective count. Then halacha l'maisa, how can I say that animal number 1 actually becomes Meiser Beima? Amarava. So since we'll say this is how the Persians count. Those Persians, right? Those Persians, how do they count? They apparently always would count from 10 to 1. So we'll say essentially what the Gemara is saying over here is because halacha l'maisa, this was an acceptable unit of counting. Right, Saeed? Is this no? Don't recall. All right, good. I'm sure your ancestors, Baruch Hashem, would. I must say no. So this is actually good. So what it's saying over here is this was an acceptable method of counting in communities. This was the way that counting was done, and therefore halacha l'maisa. If you counted at Meiser Behema from 10 to 1, it worked. And indeed, this is codified by the Rambam. Again, you don't have to trust me on any of these Rambams. This is why I sent it out to you. So Manya l'mafreya. I'm reading to you the Rambam. Paraches halacha zayin. Manya l'mafreya could go sheyatza rishon v'amar asara. So we'll say, so this is amazing. So the Rambam paskins this way. The Rambam says if you started counting 10 and work your way down to 1, halacha l'maisa, it's kaddish. I will say, but the Rambam adds in a very important postscript. The Rambam says, Shar siri me'elav yiskadish. So the Rambam says, by the way, it's not because we have affinity towards Persian counting. The Rambam says it's a different reason. At the end of the day, the 10th animal is always kaddish by itself. So remember again, Abba says we're going to see whether you call the 10th animal number 1, you call the 10th animal 10, you call the 10th animal Frank, right? It doesn't make a difference. So I'll say at the end of the day, the 10th animal is kaddish by itself. So therefore, the Rambam says as long as there's some type of indication that this animal is Meiser Behema, even without a verbal declaration, it's still going to be kaddish. Good. Let's go weiter. Says the Gemara. Next case. Kara l'tishi asiri ula asiri tishi ula chalas asiri. So let's remember again. This was the first case towards the end of the Mishnah. You call animal number 9, 10, 10, 9, and 11, 10. 11, 10. So let's remember again what happened in this case. So in this case over here, number 9 is set out to graze until it develops a mum. Number 10 is Meiser Behema, because remember again, Abba said this is the operative concept over here. 10, right? The 10th animal becomes Kaddish Me'elav, and in this case over here, what happens to number 11? Who remembers? Up to number 11, Shlomim, offered up as a Shlomim. See, here we go. Abba said this is actually incredible. Turn up on Minayin Shim Karla Tishi Asiri La Asiri Tishi La Chadasar Asiri Sheshlashim Mekdash. Abba say now the novelty in this case over here is remember again what's happened. I called 9, 10, 10, 9, and 11, 10. I will say, what's the great novelty in this case? All 3 are Kodesh, right? All 3 are Kodesh. Again, different types of Kedusha. Number 9 is set out to graze until it develops a woman, then it's yours to eat. 10 is Meiser Behema. 11 is a Shlomim. But amazingly enough, they're all Kadosh. They're all Kadosh. Where do I know this concept from? That all 3 can become Kadosh. This is incredible. Talmud Lomar, because the pasuk says, V'chol ma'aser bakar v'tzon kol asher yavar tachas hashebet ha'asiri yihiyeh kodesh. Because I will say the pasuk says, all of the meiser of your cattle and your sheep, anything that will pass under the shevet, the staff, ha'asiri kodesh, the 10th one will be kodesh. Now we'll say, now here's what's fascinating about this. On one hand, it says which animal is kodesh? Which animal is kodesh? The asiri, the 10th. But yet, what the Gemara is focusing on over here is what does it say? V'chol ma'asar, right? V'chol ma'asar, all of the ties. So we'll say that v'chol opens the door for what? Some additional animals to be included under the umbrella of Meiser Behema. So I'll say, so what are we including under that umbrella? The animals that are right next to number 10. Which are the animals next to number 10? 9 and 11. It's very exciting. So the Gemara says, Yachal she'ani marbe af shmini ushnei masar. Hey, let's make it a party. Why stop at 9 at 11? Why don't you also include 8 and 12? In other words, maybe the chosros, if I called number 8 10, or I called number 12 9, or really have the 12 10. Hey, ultimately, why don't we include those? So Gemara says, no. Amrit, horo v'hu kadosh b'ta'uso miskadesh. So remember again, here's what we know. We know number 10 is kodesh. We also know from the phrase of v'chol masar, that's what? That even if you make a mistake regarding ma'aser behema, the mistake is kaddish also. The mistake is kaddish also. Hu kaddish v'ta'uso miskadeshes. But say, by the way, you see the profundity in that words, right? It's not only hu kaddish, but even ta'uso miskadeshes. See, Rabbi was saying, in life, even your ta'us, even your mistakes can become kaddish. How could your mistakes become kaddish? As long as you grow from them, right? As long as you do something with them, as long as you learn something from them, ultimately, again, even ta'uso miskadesh, the mefurish gemara, hu kadosh, right? Hu kadosh also means that which you do right. That's the ma'aser behema, the 10th animal. That's kadosh. V'ta'uso miskadeshes, even your ta'us can become kodesh. But Rabbi says the gemara, mahu eino mekudash ela b'samuch. Rabbi says, so ultimately, again, just like the 10th one is kaddish, bisamuch. Now we'll say, now what does that mean? Just like the 10th one is kaddish because it is samuch, it is close to itself. If you look at Rashi, we'll say third line from the top, Eino mekudash ela bisamuch, she'eino samuch bo yoser migufo. There is nothing closer to the 10th animal than what? No, than the 10th. Then the 10th animal is ours. The 10th is the closest to itself. Good, hold on to that. Mahu eino mekudash ela bisamuch. After usa ina miskadeshes ela b'samuch. We'll say just like the 10th one is closest to itself, so too only the animals that could become kaddish through a ta'os are the ones that are closest to the 10th as well. Therefore, again, I will say the only animals which could become kaddish through a ta'os are 9 and 11. So we'll say this is the drasha. The drasha is v'chol ma'asar bakar b'tzon kodesh yavar tachas hashevet ha'asir kodesh. What it tells me is like this: the asir becomes kodesh. Kol ma'asar tells me only that which is closest to the 10th could become kodesh as well. What's closest to the 10th? Animals 9, animals 10. Animals 11, excuse me. So we'll say 8 and 12 are not shaykh to this. But we'll say, but again, the incredible Musar Haskil, who kaddish? Animal, the 10th is kaddish, v'ta'uso miskadeshes. Even your ta'us can become kodesh. That Tanya, we learned, mahu miyuchad, after uso miyuchades. Also, we have a brayse that says, mahu miyuchad, just like number 10 is miyuchad, there's only 1/10, right? Only 1/10 animal. After usa miyuchades, so to will say, ultimately again, even the ta'us, right, has to be miyuchad. If you look at Rashi, after usa miyuchades, shemta b'tishir b'achadas ar lo hayu shnai mekudoshin ela echad behem. So we'll say, in this brayse, what it's saying is like this. Just like there's only 1/10 animal, there's also what? Only one ta'us, right? So either you can make a mistake with the 9th or with the 11th. But there's no such thing as two ta'usim. So we'll say this contradicts what we just said before. Because in the previous price we said v'chol ma'aser covers what? The closest animal to the 10th on both ends, 9 and 11. Here this price seems to indicate that halacha l'maisa, there's only room for one ta'us. Only room for one ta'us. So Tani Tana Kamid Rabbi Yochanan Hamani Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. We'll say it's reflexive Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. This sign Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon Omer Li'olam Ein Achadasar Kadosh Ad Sheyishtok B'Tishi V'Yikra La'asiri Tishi Ula'achadasar Asiri. But Rabbi Elazar holds like this, that there's only one way for the 11th one to become Kadosh. That's how? If you didn't say anything by the 9th. If you didn't declare the 9th as anything, and you ended up making a mistake with the 10th, you called the 10th the 9th, and the 11th the 10th. That's when Rabbi Elazar says, ultimately, the 11th becomes Kaddish. But in Rabbi Elazar's view, if you did something with the 9th, you messed up the 9th, you called the 9th the 10th, or the 9th, right? You called the 9th the 10th, and then the 10th either the 9th or the 10th, then ultimately, again, the 11th cannot become anything. The Gemara says, "So look, Rabbi Yehuda the Amar, Taos Meiser Temura Havya." Ultimately, again, but our Tan holds, Yehuda holds, that a mistake when it comes to Meiser Behema is like Timura. The Savar Kavua the Amar Ein Meimar Chozer Umeimar. And he holds like, ultimately, again, his father holds that once something becomes Timura, ultimately, again, it cannot make something else into Timura. So we'll say, so a fundamental machlokes, ultimately about how far the error on Meiser Behema goes. The first opinion, the first price that we had, indicates that V'chol Ma'asar covers you on making a mistake on either side of the 10th. Number 9, and let me say it differently. The first opinion holds that you can make a mistake both on either side of number 10, both for animal number 9 as well as for animal number 11. And you could even mess both of those animals up the same. Ta'usam is kadeshes applies to animals. Therefore, again, and both say that's the view reflected in our Mishnah, that you could actually have a mistake that goes upon animals 9, 10, and 11, and all three will become Kodesh. Kodesh in different ways, but all three Kodesh nevertheless. The Gemara introduces us to another opinion that says no. The Ta'usa miskadeshes at most can only devolve upon what? One additional animal. It's either 9 or 11, but not both. So I will say it's clear that our Mishnah rejects that second view and ultimately holds like the first view. And that's the view that the Rambam holds like as well. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, if you call number 9, 10, 10, 9, 11, 10, then I will say the halacha is 9, 9 is set out to graze until it develops mum because you called it 10. Because you called it 10, you can't offer it up as Meiser Behema because it's number 9, but because you declared it as 10, it has some level of Kedusha. Therefore, it has to set out to graze until it develops mum, then you can eat it. 10, Meiser Behema. Then I will say again, because the Rambam L'shitasa holds, that's what? That halacha l'maisa, number 10 becomes Meiser Behema even without a declaration. Number 11, I will say what happens. Remember, in 11 you declared it as 10. So now it can't be offered up as Meiser Behema. Why? Because 10 is already Meiser Behema, but it is offered up as a shlamim. But I'll say based on what, and beautiful, all fits together like a beautiful tapestry. That's all this based on the Chom Ma'asar Bakar Vatzon. The Chom Ma'asar tells me that there are additional Meiser Behema animals beyond the 10th. How can you say that? What it means is that who kadosh, and I will say, remember these words, vita'uso miskadeshas. Wow. Remember it by Meiser Behema and remember it by life. Good. Amir Rava, weiter. Yatzu shnayim b'tishi. The kara and tishi. I will say, now what happens? Two animals come out in the number 9 slot. Right? Two animals come out in the number 9 slot, and kara and tishi. You called them both 9. That's what happens. You called them both 9. They both came out in the 9 slot. You called them both 9. So we'll say, what's ta'alocha? So we'll say, now remember again, in reality, what do you have over here? 9 and 10. You called them both 9. So what's ta'alocha? Asiri v'chulin mu'urav zebazeh. Ultimately, again, we'll say, so what do you have over here? You have a mixture, ultimately, again, of Asiri and chulin. Right? You have, ultimately, again, a Kaddish animal, right? A Meiser Behema animal, and a Chulin animal mixed in. Now, obviously, in this case over here, you don't know which is which, right? In other words, it's not that they came out together. Asiri me'elav Kaddish, because they're both say ultimately, again, the 10th animal, ultimately, again, is Kaddish me'elav, as we've seen before. Next, Litishi, right? Litishi, Tishi Kakarile. Ultimately, again, the 9th one, Rabbi say, is called the 9th one. Karan Asiri. What happens? We'll say same case. 9 and 10 come out together, but you call them 10. So we'll say Asiri utishi, first wide line, Me'urav and Zebazeh. So we'll say in this case over here, you have animals 9 and 10 mixed in together with each other. So the Me'urav and Zebazeh, my timer, what's the reason? Asiri kakari le'letar vayu. Ultimately, again, because you're calling them both number 10. Yatsu shnayim ba'asiri. We'll say similarly again, if two animals come out in the number 10 position. Ukara'an asiri, and you call them both 10. Asiri va'achadasar mu'uraven zebazeh. So also you have animals 10 and 11 mixed in together. Karan achadasar, if you end up calling them 11, so what we'll say, what's ta'alacha? Karan achadasar, asiri v'chulin mu'uraven zebazeh. So we'll say, in reality, what you have over here is what? You have 10 and 11, which is a kodesh animal and a chulin animal mixed in together. Well, I don't need that last case. It's just a repetition of the previous case. Hainuach, hakamash malon, decho ba bebas achos, Tavayo Kakadshi. Rabbi Yossi, what it comes to teach us is any two animals that emerge simultaneously, they become Kodesh. Va'af agav delo ne'akar shem asiri hemenu. Rabbi Yossi, now the truth is, even though what? Even though again, Rabbi says, remember again in the second case of the Mishnah, where you called 9, 10, 10, 10, 11, 10. Remember again, what was halacha in that case? So 9 is set out to graze, till it develops a mum. 10 is meiser behema, and 11? Nothing. Right? Nothing. Right? Why? Why? Because remember again, once you declare 10, 10, we're done. We're done, right? We shut it down. We're done. So the designation of 11 as 10 is really meaningless. So I'll say, so the chiddush over here is that ultimately, again, even though in this case over here, animal 10 actually was called 10, because remember, 10 and 11 emerged together. 10 and 11 emerged together. So I would have thought that once 10 was declared 10, there's nothing to do with 11. Since they came out by basachos, ultimately, again, 11 has some residual kedusha as well because it was called animal number 10. That's the chiddush over here. When 10 and 11 emerge simultaneously, and you call them both 10. So we'll say, I might have thought that's what? Well, if they emerge simultaneously, you called them both 10, then what? In one of those two is what? Is 10, and should prevent kedusha from devolving upon 11. Kamash malan, that when they come out simultaneously and they're both called 10, 10 is Kaddish, and 11 ultimately again has some residual Kedusha as well. That's different than the case in the Mishnah. Because what happened in the Mishnah? So what happened in the Mishnah? So remember again, they came out separately. 9 came out, you called it 10. 10 came out, you called it 10. 11 came out, you called it 10. So once you called 10, 10 by itself, then what? Process is done. The designation of 11 is meaningless. Here, the novelty is, if it comes out by Basachos, 10 and 11 come out by Basachos, you call them both 10, what's the halacha? We'll say some level of kedusha devolves upon number 11. So we'll say, so the Rambam actually codifies this case in. Good. So we'll say, so again. So we'll say, so remember again, over here the Rambam codifies this in halacha dalid, and the Rambam writes this. I'll just read it to you quickly. Yatsu tishi'i v'asiri ke'echad. If 9 and 10 come out of the pen together, Bein shekar shnei masiri, bein shekar tishi, shnei mikudashin, v'yocha bamuman ve'enan kraven. So we'll say, so remember again, in this case over here, so here's what I know. I have 9 and 10, one of them is 9, one of them is 10. One of them is Kaddish, one of them is not. I don't know which is which. So we'll say, so the only way to deal with this is how? You let them both graze, develop a mum, and then ultimately again both of them become permitted for consumption. V'cheinim yatsa asiri v'achadasar ke'echad im karan asiri hari asiri v'achadasar muraven zeh bazeh v'hein kimo ma'aseh shenis ari b'shlamim sheyochel b'muman. Ultimately, so we'll say the halacha is the same in all of these cases. Essentially, whenever you have animal number 10 mixed in with a chulin animal, whether that chulin animal is animal number 9, whether that chulin animal is animal number 11, either way, again, you let both animals graze until they develop a mum, and at that point in time, you're permitted to consume it with the mum. Good. Yasir Rav Kana v'kamrei l'hashmaisa. So Rav Kana was saying over this statement of Rava, this last statement in front of Rav Ashi. I'm sorry, the Kamrei Lahashmaisa. Amrli Rav Ashi the Rav Kana. So Rav Ashi said to Rav Kana, V'halo lo ne'ekar shema siri hemenu. But one second, in the case of ultimately again where 11 and 10 come out at the same time. So we're saying over here that they both become Kodesh b'basachos, and therefore again ultimately because they're coming out simultaneously, and therefore Allah Chalamai said they're left to graze. They're left to graze till the Ram says they're left to graze till develop a mum. But I understand V'ha. But we learned. I'm sorry. But one second. The designation, right? The identity of animal number 10 was not uprooted. If the identity of animal number 10 was not uprooted, then what? Then number 11 should be shut down. There's nothing to talk about. Utinan zakla. We learned in the Mishnah. Kol shelo ne'akar shem asiri himenu. Ein achad asar mekudash. Remember again, this was the case in the Mishnah. When you call 9, 10, 10, 10, 11, 10, the designation of 11 as 10 is meaningless. Why? Because 10 was designated as 10. To which the Gemara says, okay, hani mili b'zeh. That's true in the case of the Mishnah, because what's happening in the Mishnah? 9's coming out, 10's coming out, 11's coming out. So it's true, you messed up the numbering. You called 9, 10, 10, 10, and 11, 10. Once you call a 10, once you have a defined 10th, and you call that 10th, so the discussion is over. In this case, aval b'bas achos Tavaya Kakachi. We'll say in this case where they're both coming out at the same time, both of them become Kodesh. But 1 second, in the case of Bezeh Achar Zeh, we learned that explicitly in the Mishnah. Karla Tishi Asiri, Ula Asiri Asiri, Ula Achadasar Asiri. But it's the case in the Mishnah. We learned about this. If you call number 9, 10. You call number 10, 10. You call number 11, 10. I will say this is again, we're coming Bezeh Achar Zeh, they're coming out one after the other. Ein Achad Asar Mekudash. Ultimately, again, neither of them, I will say, number 11 is not Mekudash. Why is number 11 not Mekudash? Because once again, remember again, once you go ahead and you designate number 10 as 10, then what? The process is fundamentally shut down. But here's the problem, we'll say. The Mishnah says, Zeh klal. Remember again, always Lashon the Mishnah? The Mishnah said, Zeh klal. Kol shelo ne'ekar shem asiri mimenu, ein achad asar mekudash. As long as the designation of number 10, lo ne'akar, was not uprooted, meaning is clearly articulated and defined, not even articulated, clearly defined, so ultimately, again, any subsequent animal does not become kodesh in any way. Zaklal asuyei mai. What is that zaklal coming to include? My love la'asuyei basachos. But say, is it not coming to include even the case of basachos? Where what? 10 and 11 come out at the same time. And it's coming to teach you that what? That once there is a defined 10th animal, even if you're not sure which of the two it is, that precludes number 11 from assuming any level of Kedusha, to which the Gemara says, Lo. La suye yatsa asiri velo diber. Oh. But I'll say, what is it coming to include? It's coming to include the case where animal number 10 came out, but what? You didn't say anything. You didn't say anything. You did not declare it as number 10. And what is it coming to teach me? That even if you did not declare animal number 10 as 10, that is still called what? Meiser Behema. And because it is called Meiser Behema, Dahalo Ne'ekar Shem Asiri Himenu. And what is it coming to teach me? That when animal number 10 comes out, a clearly defined 10, a 10 that is exiting by itself, even if you did not say a word, ultimately, again, that's called animal number 10, to the point, that's what I will say, even if you were to call number 11 10, what would happen? Nothing. That statement is meaningless. The halo ne'ekar shem asiri hemenu. Because ultimately, again, I will say, even though you didn't call 10, 10, once 10 emerges, ultimately it takes on the identity as 10 and shuts down the Meiser Behema process, so that even to the point if you were to declare any subsequent animal, really only applies to the animal number 11 as 10, that still would be meaningless. So the Gemara says, because we'll say if you would not state this halacha, I might have thought, Hadisanya yatsu shnayim ba'asiri. Two of the animals come out together in the number 10 position. And one did not come before its friend. They came at the same time. V'kara'an asiri. Right? V'karan asiri. Right? V'karan asiri. So I'm saying you call them 10. So again, remember what's happening in this case. Asiri v'achadasar mu'uravin zebozeh. Remember again, 10 and 11 are mixed together. Ay v'halo lo ne'ekar shem asiri himenu. But at the end of the day, even in this case, Rabbosai, so identity of number 10 is still intact. Ultimately, so what do you see from here? You see from here, Rabbosai, that the concept of the identity of number 10 being solidified, not being uprooted, and shutting down the process any further is only when it's a clearly defined 10. But if it's babas achas, even though I know one of these animals is 10, one of these animals is 11, and there is an animal that is a number 10 in there, ultimately, again, because it's babas achas, they're coming out together, that allows for animal number 11 to acquire some level of kedusha. To which the Gemara says, no, that's not a good answer. Because what's the case? We'll say, what's the case? One of them came out a little bit faster than the other. So let's say the 10th animal came out, stuck out its head. The kari achadasar, you called it number 11. V'hadir i'arav, then it got back mixed up again. The nafok bahadadi, and then they come out together. The karinu asiri, and ultimately again, then you call them both 10. The hanekar shem asiri, because we'll say in that case, the Shem Asiri was uprooted. Why was it uprooted? Because when it stuck its head out, you called it number 11, thereby uprooting number 10. This the Gemara says, v'halo kadam katani, but it says that neither animal preceded the other. Milo kadam, the hadar i'arav. We'll say ultimately, what does it mean that it did not proceed? That ultimately it got mixed up together again. We'll say just two more lines that we're going to stop. Kiman, and whose opinion does this reflect? The lo kere. We'll say this is not crazy. This is incredible. Not like Rebbe. We'll say, watch this. The Rebbe ha'amar achadasar lo havi akira. And we'll say, get ready for this. And we'll say, what the Gemara is suggesting is as follows. That may be the case, and a little bit of a convoluted case, but very interesting, right? So maybe what happens is as follows. 10 and 11 are getting ready to come out. 10 comes out, right? 10 pokes his head out first. What do? You don't call it 10. What do you call it? 11. Now, it's like when you call it 11, so what have you done? You have fundamentally uprooted the number 10 identity. Then what happens? 10 sticks its head back in, gets mixed up together with the rest of the animals, and then 10 and 11 come out together, and you call them both 10. Right? You call them both 10. Obviously, you don't know which is the one that stuck its head out before, right? But ultimately, the animal which was 10, that you called 11, then went back into the pen, comes out again with another animal, We'll say, at this point in time, it's just easy. Just give the whole thing to the Beis HaMikdash. Right? I'm done with this already, right? I can't keep track of this. So animal number 10 sticks out its head, you call it 11. Then it brings its head back in. Then it comes back out again. 10 and 11 together, you call them both 10. What's ta'alacha? They're both kodesh. Then I will say, now the reason why this case works is ultimately because in this situation, the number 10 identity was uprooted. Why was it uprooted? Because you called it 11 ultimately when it peeked its head out. So I will say, the Gemara just points out, so what the Gemara is suggesting is, calling number 10, 11 is an active uprooting ultimately again of its 10 identity. Who holds that calling number 10, 11 is an uprooting of its identity? Everyone other than Rebbe. But we'll stop over here for today. We're going to pick up with the sheet of Rebbe, Emir Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach. Perfect.